Commander Vexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on his screens. Earth looked peaceful from space. White clouds drifted over green lands and blue oceans. It was almost pretty. "Sir, we are in position," his tactical officer reported. "All ships ready for orbital bombardment." Vexthul nodded and pulled up Earth's file on his personal display. The data was clear and simple. The humans had primitive rockets that could barely reach their own moon. Their most powerful weapons were nuclear bombs that could destroy a city, maybe two. They still fought wars among themselves using metal bullets and explosive shells. Estimated. "Conquest time?" Vexthul asked. 72 hours, sir. Standard protocol. That was how it always went. The hegemony fleet would arrive at a new world. They would destroy the planet's military bases and communication systems from orbit. Then they would broadcast a surrender demand. Every species in the galaxy had learned the same lesson. Resistance was pointless. Better to surrender quickly and avoid unnecessary death. "Begin Phase 1, Vexthul ordered. The fleet opened fire. Bright beams of energy lanced down from space, targeting every military installation the hegemony's scouts had identified. Missile bases, army headquarters, naval ports, air force runways, all of them vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Vexthul watched the tactical display as target after target went dark. "Communication satellites next," he said. More energy. Beams reached out, destroying the network of metal objects that circled Earth. Without satellites, the humans could not coordinate their defense. Without communication, they would panic and surrender. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're detecting radio transmissions from the surface." "Impossible. We destroyed their communication network." "These are different signals, sir. Lower frequency. They're using very old technology." Vexthul frowned. Most species tried to hide after losing their satellites. They certainly didn't increase their communications. "Can you understand the transmissions?" "Some of them, sir. They appear to be sharing information about our attack patterns and ship positions." "Let them talk," Vexthul said. "It won't help them." The next phase began. Landing craft launched from the fleet, carrying ground troops to secure major population centers. Vexthul expected the usual sight. Empty streets, frightened civilians hiding in buildings, maybe a few scattered soldiers running away. Instead, his first landing craft reported contact with organized resistance. "Sir, Landing Group Alpha is taking heavy fire," the radio crackled. "The humans have weapons we didn't detect from orbit." "What kind of weapons?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be using our own energy signatures against us somehow." Vexthul stared at the display. That was impossible. No primitive species could adapt their technology that quickly. "Send reinforcements to Alpha. Landing Group Beta is also under attack, sir. The humans knew exactly where we were going to land." "How could they know?" "Unknown, sir. But they had prepared positions and weapons ready." More reports came in. Every landing zone was defended. The humans weren't running or hiding. They were fighting back with tactics that made no sense for a primitive species. "Sir, we have a problem," the tactical officer said. "Several of our bombing targets appear to have been decoys." "What do you mean, decoys?" "The military bases we destroyed were fake, sir. Built to look real from orbit, but empty inside. The real bases are underground or hidden in other locations." Vexthul felt a chill run down his spine. No species had ever tried to fool the hegemony's orbital scans before. It required planning, intelligence, and most importantly, the belief that resistance was possible. "How long until we establish control of the major cities?" he asked. "Unknown. Sir, the humans are not following standard resistance patterns." What did that mean? Every species followed the same pattern. First shock, then panic, then surrender. It was basic psychology. "Show me the surface feeds." The main screen displayed images from his ground forces. Vexthul expected to see burning buildings and fleeing civilians. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The humans were organized. They moved in small groups, using cover and concealment like trained soldiers. They had weapons that shouldn't exist on their primitive world. Energy shields, directed energy weapons, communication, devices that worked despite the destroyed satellite network. "Sir, they're using our own tactics against us," one of his officers reported. "They seem to understand our equipment and procedures." "That's impossible. They're a primitive species. Perhaps our intelligence was wrong, sir." Vexthul stared at the display. In 72 hours, this should all be over. The humans should be on their knees, begging for mercy and accepting hegemony rule. Instead, they were fighting back with skill and determination that belonged to a military species, not peaceful primitives. "Sir, incoming transmission from the surface," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The being was older, with gray hair and scars on his face. He wore some kind of military uniform that Vexthul didn't recognize. "This is General Harrison of the Earth Defense Force," the human said in clear hegemony standard language. "We know. You expected us to surrender by now?" Vexthul was too shocked to respond immediately. The human spoke their language. "How was that possible? We've been monitoring your communications since you entered our solar system," General Harrison continued. "We've learned quite a bit about your tactics, your technology, and your expectations. Surrender now, and your species will be treated well under hegemony rule," Vexthul finally managed to say. The human smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You misunderstand the situation, Commander. We're not the prey here. You are." The transmission ended. Vexthul stared at the blank screen. Every species said something similar at first. Brave words meant nothing against hegemony firepower. But something about this felt different. "Sir, we're detecting movement in Earth's asteroid belt," the sensor officer reported. "What kind of movement?" "Unknown objects. They appear to be mining equipment, sir, but modified." "Modified how?" "They have weapons, sir, and they're moving toward our fleet." Vexthul's mind raced. The humans had been in space longer than the intelligence report suggested. They had been preparing for this fight. But how could they know the hegemony was coming? "Sir, urgent message from High Command," the communications officer announced. Admiral Korth's image appeared on the screen. "Commander Vexthul, explain why this conquest is taking longer than expected." "Sir, the intelligence reports were incomplete. The humans are more advanced than we thought." "Nonsense. Our scouts confirmed they are primitive. Complete your mission." "Commander." The transmission ended. Vexthul looked back at his tactical display. 3 days had passed since the invasion began. By now, he should be accepting the formal surrender of Earth's government. Instead, he was watching his ground forces get pushed back by an enemy that shouldn't exist. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. And that was impossible, wasn't it? 2 months later, Commander Vexthul stared at his casualty reports with growing disbelief. The numbers made no sense. His forces should have been celebrating victory and preparing for the next conquest. Instead, they were dying. "Sir, we've lost another supply convoy," his aide reported. "The humans hit them with some kind of guided missiles." "Where did they get guided missiles?" "We think they built them, sir, using parts from our crashed ships." Vexthul rubbed his forehead. The humans were doing something that no other species had ever done. They were learning, not just learning to hide or run, but learning to fight back with increasing skill. In the first week, human weapons had been primitive, metal bullets and explosive shells that barely scratched hegemony armor. Now they were using energy weapons that could punch through battle suits and shields that deflected plasma fire. "How is this possible?" he muttered. "Sir, I think I understand," his intelligence officer said. "I've been studying their history. The humans have been fighting wars for their entire existence as a species. So have many races. Not like this, sir. Most species fight until one side wins, then they stop. Humans fight differently. They study their enemies during the fight and change their tactics constantly. Vexthul pulled up the human military database on his screen. What he read made his skin crawl. These creatures had been at war with each other for thousands of years. They had developed weapons and tactics for every possible situation. They had studied warfare like other species studied art. "Look at this," the intelligence officer continued. "They have something called military history. They study every battle their species has ever fought and learn from it. That's disturbing." "It gets worse, sir. They don't just learn from their own battles. They learn from everyone else's, too. We found libraries on Earth filled with analysis of alien military tactics." "What alien tactics? They've never met aliens before." "Theoretical aliens, sir. They imagined what space warfare might look like and prepared for it." Vexthul felt sick. The humans had been preparing for this war before they even knew the hegemony existed. They had spent centuries thinking about how to fight enemies from space. "Sir, urgent report from the surface," another officer called out. The main screen showed footage from a battle in what the humans called Europe. Vexthul watched hegemony troops advance on a human position only to walk into a perfectly coordinated ambush. The humans had studied hegemony tactics and turned them into a trap. "They're using our own battle formations against us," the tactical officer observed. "How did they learn our formations?" "They watch every battle, sir. They study our movements and find weaknesses." On the screen, human soldiers moved with precision that matched elite hegemony units. They used cover and concealment like veterans. They coordinated their attacks with timing that spoke of extensive training. But these weren't professional soldiers. Intelligence reports said most of them were civilians, teachers, farmers, factory workers who had taken up arms when the invasion began. "Sir, another problem," the communications officer reported. "The humans are broadcasting on hegemony frequencies." "What? Are they broadcasting?" "Technical manuals, sir. They're sharing information about our equipment and how to defeat it." Vexthul pulled up the broadcasts. Human voices spoke in broken hegemony standard, but their meaning was clear. They were teaching other humans how to repair captured weapons, how to build improvised explosives, how to jam hegemony communications. "They're turning this into a learning experience," he said quietly. "Sir, every battle teaches them something new. They're not just fighting us, they're studying us, learning from us, getting better." The proof was in the casualty reports. In the first month, hegemony forces had killed 10 humans for every soldier lost. Now the ratio was nearly even. At this rate, the humans would be winning battles within weeks. "Sir, we have a bigger problem," the sensor officer announced. "Human spacecraft detected in orbit." "Impossible. We destroyed their space capability." "These are new ships, sir, built from salvaged hegemony technology." The tactical display showed crude but functional spacecraft approaching the fleet. They were ugly, patched together from different sources, but they were armed and they were moving with purpose. "Are they trying to attack us?" "Unknown, sir. But they're broadcasting a message." General Harrison's face appeared on the screen again. This time he was wearing what looked like a hegemony officer's uniform, modified with human symbols. "Commander Vexthul," Harrison said, "we want to thank you for the educational opportunity." "What do you mean?" "Your invasion has taught us more about space warfare in 2 months than we learned in the previous 50 years. We've analyzed your tactics, reverse-engineered your technology, and adapted your strategies to our needs." Vexthul felt his heart sink. "You cannot hope to defeat the hegemony fleet with those crude ships." Harrison smiled that unpleasant human expression again. "We're not trying to defeat your fleet, Commander. We're trying to learn from it." The transmission ended just as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Sir, the human ships are attacking." On screen, Vexthul watched the impossible happen. The crude human spacecraft moved like veteran pilots, using tactics that combined hegemony space doctrine with innovations he had never seen before. They didn't try to match his fleet's firepower. Instead, they used speed and unpredictability to cause maximum damage. "They're targeting our communications arrays," the tactical officer reported. "And our sensors," added another. "Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to blind us." Vexthul realized what was happening. The humans weren't fighting to win this battle. They were fighting to learn how space combat worked. Every attack taught them something new about hegemony weaknesses. "Sir, incoming message from High Command." Admiral Korth appeared on screen, his expression furious. "Commander Vexthul, explain why you have not completed this conquest." "Sir, the humans are not a primitive species. They're a military species that has been preparing for interstellar warfare." "Impossible. Our intelligence is perfect." "Sir, with respect, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been at war with each other for thousands of years. They've developed military capabilities that exceed our expectations." "You're making excuses for your own failures, Commander." "Sir, I request immediate reinforcements and authorization to use heavy orbital bombardment." "Denied. Complete your mission with existing forces." The transmission ended. Vexthul stared at the tactical display, watching human ships dance around. His fleet like they had been built for space combat. In 2 months, they had gone from primitive rockets to functional spacecraft that could challenge hegemony vessels. "Sir, the human ships are withdrawing," the tactical officer reported. "Damage report." "Minimal, sir. But they took detailed scans of our ships before leaving." "Of course they did. The humans weren't trying to destroy the fleet. They were studying it, learning from it, preparing for the next battle. And the next battle would be different. The humans would be better prepared, better armed, and better trained." For the first time in his career, Vexthul began to wonder if the hegemony might actually lose this war. 6 months into what should have been a completed conquest, Vexthul received the message he had been dreading. "Sir, the humans are requesting a meeting," his communications officer reported. "They want to surrender?" "No, sir. They want to discuss terms for our withdrawal." Vexthul stared at the message for a long moment. No species had ever asked the hegemony to withdraw. It was unthinkable. The hegemony didn't retreat. They conquered. "Sir, you should see this," his intelligence officer said, pulling up a tactical display of Earth. The planet looked completely different than it had 6 months ago. The major cities were still damaged from the initial bombardment, but new structures had been built. Strange buildings that combined human architecture with hegemony technology. Factory complexes that glowed with the distinctive energy signatures of advanced manufacturing. "They're not just rebuilding," Vexthul said quietly. "They're improving." "Yes. Sir, our scouts report they've established production facilities for hybrid technology, human-designed equipment using hegemony power sources and materials. Show me their military capabilities." The display changed to show human military units. Vexthul's breath caught in his throat. These weren't the scattered resistance fighters he had faced at the beginning. These were organized military formations, equipped with advanced weapons and vehicles. "Sir, they have tanks that use hegemony armor plating but human weapon systems. Aircraft that combine our propulsion technology with their own targeting computers. Infantry wearing battlesuits that are better than our own." "Better? How is that possible?" "They took our designs and improved them, sir. Added features we never thought of. Enhanced capabilities we didn't know were possible." Vexthul studied the images. Human soldiers moved with confidence and precision that matched elite hegemony units. Their equipment looked functional and deadly. Their formations spoke of extensive training and experience. "How many casualties have we taken in the last month?" he asked. 70%, sir?" 70%? "The humans have gotten very good at killing us, sir." The truth was unavoidable. His invasion force was being systematically eliminated by an enemy that learned faster than he could adapt. Every battle taught the humans something new, while his own forces were still using tactics developed centuries ago. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth." General Harrison appeared on screen. This time, he was wearing a uniform that Vex Thul didn't recognize, clearly human in design but incorporating hegemony symbols and rank insignia. "Commander Vex Thul," Harrison said, "I think it's time we talked." "The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives." Harrison laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Commander, look at your casualty reports. Look at your supply situation. Look at your tactical position. Who exactly is primitive here?" Vex Thul wanted to argue, but the facts were undeniable. His fleet was running low on supplies because human raiders kept hitting his supply convoys. His ground forces were being pushed back on every front because humans had learned to outfight his soldiers. His orbital superiority meant nothing because humans had learned to hide underground and strike from unexpected directions. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "We want you to leave," Harrison said simply. "Pack up your ships and go home. The hegemony doesn't retreat. Then the hegemony is going to lose a lot more ships." Harrison gestured off-screen, and the tactical display changed to show something that made Vex Thul's blood run cold. Dozens of spacecraft were rising from Earth's surface. Not the crude vessels he had seen before, but sleek, deadly-looking ships that combined the best of human and hegemony technology. "We've been busy," Harrison said. "Learning, improving, building. Those ships won't be enough to defeat a hegemony fleet." "You're right. But they don't have to defeat your fleet, Commander. They just have to hurt it badly enough that High Command starts asking uncomfortable questions." Vex Thul realized what Harrison meant. A defeated invasion force would trigger investigations. Questions would be asked about how a primitive species had managed to resist the mighty hegemony. Other worlds might get ideas about resistance. "Sir, the human ships are moving to attack formation," his tactical officer reported. "How many?" 47 ships, sir, all armed with hybrid weapon systems. 47 ships against his remaining fleet of over 300. It should have been an easy victory. But Vex Thul had learned not to underestimate humans. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," the communications officer announced. The main screen filled with General Harrison's face. But this time, he wasn't speaking to Vex Thul, he was speaking to the galaxy. "People of the hegemony," Harrison said in perfect hegemony standard. "My name is General Harrison of Earth. 6 months ago, your fleet came to conquer our world. They expected us to surrender in 72 hours. Vex Thul tried to cut the transmission, but the humans had somehow overridden his communications system. We did not surrender," Harrison continued. "We fought back. We learned from your tactics. We improved your technology. We turned your own weapons against you. Sir, this is being broadcast throughout hegemony space," the communications officer reported with panic in his voice. "And now we want to share what we've learned with every world the hegemony has conquered. We want to show you that resistance is not only possible, it's inevitable." The transmission cut to footage of human forces defeating hegemony troops. Battle after battle where primitive humans outfought advanced alien soldiers using superior tactics and hybrid technology. "Turn it off," Vex Thul ordered. "I can't, sir. They've locked onto our transmission systems." Harrison's face returned to the screen. "Commander Vex Thul, you have 1 hour to begin withdrawing your forces. After that, we'll demonstrate what we've learned about space warfare." The transmission ended. "Sir, we're receiving hundreds of communications from throughout hegemony space," the officer reported. "Conquered worlds are requesting copies of the human tactical manuals." Vex Thul stared at the tactical display. The human ships were holding formation just outside weapons range, waiting. They weren't attacking because they didn't need to. They had already won the real battle, the battle for information. Every conquered world in the galaxy now knew that the hegemony could be defeated. They knew that humans had done it, and they knew that the humans were willing to share their knowledge. Sir, urgent communication from High Command. Admiral Korth's face appeared on screen, his expression furious beyond words. Commander Vexthul, what have you done? Sir, I followed standard invasion protocols. You've triggered a galaxy-wide rebellion. Every world in hegemony space is reporting resistance movements. They're all asking for human technical assistance. Sir, the humans are more dangerous than we realized. Dangerous? They're a catastrophe. Do you understand what you've unleashed? Vexthul looked at the human ships on his display. Sleek, deadly, and crewed by a species that had learned to fight by fighting the best military force in the galaxy. Yes, sir, he said quietly. I think I do. The hegemony had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened something that would change the galaxy forever. High Command's reinforcement fleet arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. 500 ships carrying the most elite forces in the hegemony. Admiral Korth himself led the fleet, determined to end what he called the human problem once and for. All Commander Vexthul, now demoted to technical advisor, watched from the bridge of Admiral Korth's flagship as they approached Earth. The planet looked different again. Massive orbital stations floated in space around it, clearly built from salvaged hegemony ships, but modified with human innovations. Report, Admiral Korth demanded. Sir, the humans have built extensive orbital defenses, the tactical officer reported. 16 battle stations, over 200 defense platforms, and an estimated 300 spacecraft. 300? Where did they get the resources for 300 ships? Vexthul cleared his throat. Sir, they've been salvaging our destroyed vessels and combining the materials with their own industrial capacity. You let them salvage hegemony technology? Sir, they took it from the ships they destroyed in battle. Admiral Korth glared at him. This ends now. All ships, prepare for full orbital bombardment. We'll sterilize the entire planet if necessary. Sir, Vexthul said carefully, that may not be wise. Why not? Because they're not just on Earth anymore. The main display changed to show a star map of local space. Red dots marked human presence. Throughout the region, asteroid mining operations, space stations, even settlements on nearby planets. How is this possible? Admiral Korth demanded. They work very fast, sir, and they've been recruiting. Recruiting who? Anyone who wants to learn how to fight the hegemony. The display zoomed in on one of the red dots. It was a space station orbiting a gas giant, but it wasn't built in human style. The architecture was clearly from the Zephron species, one of the hegemony's oldest conquests. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from that station, the communications officer reported. Put it through. A Zephran face appeared on screen, but something was different. Instead of the submissive expression typical of conquered species, this one looked confident, almost defiant. Admiral Korth, the Zephran said, I am Engineer Talvex. I want to thank you for bringing the humans to our attention. What do you mean? They've taught us things we never knew were possible. How to fight back. How to win. The transmission ended abruptly. Admiral Korth stared at the blank screen. Sir, we're detecting similar transmissions from 17 other systems, the communications officer reported. All conquered worlds that have established contact with Earth. This is impossible. How could one primitive planet influence so many worlds? Vexthul pulled up his intelligence reports. Sir, the humans have been very busy. They've sent technical advisors, weapon designs, and tactical manuals to anyone who asks. They're teaching the entire galaxy how to fight us. Why would they do that? Because that's what humans do, sir. They share information, they cooperate, they build alliances. Admiral Korth studied the star map. The red dots were spreading like an infection throughout hegemony space. Each one represented a world that was learning human tactics and building human-designed weapons. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth, the communications officer announced. General Harrison appeared on screen. His uniform had changed again. This time, it incorporated symbols from dozens of different species. Behind him, Vexthul could see aliens working alongside humans in what looked like a military command center. "Admiral Korth," Harrison said, "welcome to the neighborhood. Surrender immediately or we will destroy your planet." "No, you won't." "Why not?" Harrison smiled that disturbing human expression. "Because we're not just fighting for Earth anymore, Admiral. We're fighting for everyone." The tactical display exploded with new contacts. Ships were emerging from hyperspace throughout the system, not just human vessels, but spacecraft from dozens of different species. All of them were moving in coordinated formation toward the hegemony fleet. "Sir, we're outnumbered 3-1, the tactical officer reported with shock in his voice. "Impossible. Where did they all come from?" Harrison answered the question. "Every world you've conquered in the last 1,000 years, Admiral. They've all been waiting for someone to show them how to fight back." The alien ships moved with precision that spoke of extensive training. They used formations that combined traditional hegemony tactics with innovations Vexthul had never seen before. It was clear that the humans hadn't just shared their technology. They had shared their knowledge of warfare itself. "Sir, we're receiving surrender demands," the communications officer reported. "Surrender demands? From them?" "Yes, sir. They're demanding that we withdraw from this system and release all conquered worlds." Admiral Korth's face turned dark with rage. "The hegemony does not surrender to primitives." "Then the hegemony is about to learn what modern warfare looks like," Harrison replied. The first wave of attacks came from directions the hegemony fleet hadn't expected. Small, fast ships darted in to disable engines and weapon systems, while larger vessels provided covering fire. It wasn't random violence. It was coordinated military action planned by beings who understood both hegemony strengths and weaknesses. "Sir, they're not trying to destroy us," the tactical officer observed. "They're trying to capture our ships." Why would they want to capture them? Vexthul realized the answer with growing horror. "They want to study them, sir. Learn from them, improve their own designs." "Sir, hull breach on Deck 7, damage control reported. Boarding parties detected." "Boarding parties?" "Mixed human and alien forces, sir. They're trying to take the ship intact." Admiral Korth drew his sidearm. "All hands, repel boarders!" But it was too late. The boarding parties moved through the ship with surgical precision, disabling resistance and securing key areas. These weren't desperate attacks by untrained rebels. These were military operations conducted by experienced soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. "Sir, they've reached the bridge," security reported. The blast doors opened, and General Harrison walked in. He was flanked by soldiers from a dozen different species, all of them carrying weapons that combined human design with alien technology. "Admiral Korth," Harrison said politely, "we need to talk. The hegemony will never surrender to you." "We're not asking the hegemony to surrender to us, Admiral. We're asking you to surrender to them." Harrison gestured toward the tactical display, which now showed the galaxy-wide rebellion that was spreading from system to system. Conquered worlds were rising up everywhere, using human tactics and human-designed weapons to drive out hegemony forces. "This is what you created when you invaded Earth," Harrison said. "You woke up the galaxy. You showed every conquered species that resistance was possible. And now they're all fighting back." Vexthul looked at the display with growing understanding. The humans hadn't just defeated one invasion fleet. They had triggered the collapse of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. "What do you want?" Admiral Korth asked finally. "We want you to go home," Harrison said simply. "All of you. Leave the conquered worlds alone and return to your own space." "And if we refuse?" Harrison's smile was no longer friendly. "Then we'll keep teaching the galaxy how to fight you until there's nothing left of your empire but dust and bad memories." Looking at the tactical display showing rebellions spreading across hundreds of worlds, Vexthul realized that the humans had already won. They hadn't just defeated the hegemony military, they had destroyed the idea that the hegemony was invincible, and that was the only victory that mattered. The peace conference took place on a neutral space station in the Outer Rim, built specifically for the negotiations. Vexthul, now serving as the hegemony's chief military advisor, walked through corridors filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, former slaves, conquered peoples, and species he had never heard of, all of them free for the first time in generations. Admiral Korth sat at the head of the hegemony delegation, his face showing the strain of the past 6 months. Across from him sat General Harrison and representatives from the newly formed Galactic Liberation Alliance. The humans had somehow managed to unite every rebel group in the galaxy under a single banner. "Let's review the terms," Harrison said, pulling up a holographic display. "The hegemony agrees to withdraw from all conquered territories and return them to their original inhabitants." "Impossible," Admiral Korth replied. "Those worlds are part of the hegemony. We've invested centuries in their development." "You've invested centuries in their exploitation," corrected a Zephyrin delegate. "We've calculated the resources you've extracted from our worlds. The debt is significant." Vexthul studied the financial projections on his screen. The numbers were staggering. If the hegemony had to pay reparations for 1,000 years of conquest, it would bankrupt their entire civilization. "Perhaps we could discuss a payment plan," he suggested quietly. Harrison shook his head. "We're not interested in money." "Then what do you want?" "We want you to stop expanding. No more conquests, no more invasions, no more forcing other species to submit to hegemony rule." That's our entire civilization," Admiral Korth protested. "The hegemony exists to bring order to the galaxy." "The galaxy doesn't want your order," Harrison replied. "It wants freedom." A new voice spoke up, from the Alliance delegation. It was a being Vexthul didn't recognize, tall, crystalline, with features that seemed to shift in the light. "I am Shard Singer Velthar of the Crystal Collective," the being said. "Our world was conquered 800 years ago. We have not forgotten." "Your world was brought into the hegemony peacefully," Admiral Korth argued, "after you destroyed 3 of our cities and killed 2 million of our people." More voices joined in. Representatives from dozens of worlds, each with stories of conquest, oppression, and resistance. The hegemony had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten the cost of their empire. "Sir," Vexthul whispered to Admiral Korth, "we should consider their terms. We don't negotiate with rebels. Sir, they're not rebels anymore. They're the legitimate governments of their worlds." Harrison stood up and walked to the central display. With a gesture, he brought up a real-time map of the galaxy. Most of it was now colored green, worlds that had declared independence from the hegemony. "Admiral, you need to understand the situation," Harrison said. "The hegemony currently controls less than 30% of its former territory. Your military is scattered across hundreds of systems, fighting rebellions that grow stronger every day. Your economy is collapsing because you've lost access to the resources you've been extracting from conquered worlds." "We can rebuild," Admiral Korth said stubbornly. "With what?" "Your core worlds were never designed to be self-sufficient. You've depended on tribute from conquered species for centuries." Vexthul realized Harrison was right. The hegemony's home worlds were administrative centers and military bases, not industrial powerhouses. They had grown soft and dependent on the labor and resources of their subjects. "What exactly are you proposing?" Vexthul asked. Harrison returned to his seat. "Simple. The hegemony withdraws to its core systems and agrees to a non-aggression pact with all independent worlds. In return, we don't systematically dismantle your remaining infrastructure. That's not much of a choice. It's the only choice you have left." Another human delegate spoke up. A woman wearing the uniform of what Vex Thul had learned was the Earth Space Navy. "We've run the calculations. If this war continues, the hegemony will cease to exist within 2 years. Not because we'll destroy you, but because your own people will abandon you." "What do you mean? How many hegemony citizens have requested asylum on liberated worlds in the past month?" she asked. Vexthul checked his datapad. The number was shocking. 47 million. "They're leaving because they want to be part of something better," the woman continued. "A galaxy where different species work together instead of one dominating all the others." "Impossible. The hegemony is the natural order. Without strong central authority, the galaxy will fall into chaos." Harrison laughed. "Admiral, look around you. This conference includes representatives from 300 worlds and 47 different species. We're working together to solve galactic problems. Where's the chaos?" Vexthul had to admit the human had a point. The Alliance delegates were cooperating with remarkable efficiency, despite their different cultures and biologies. They had managed to coordinate a galaxy-wide rebellion without falling into the infighting that hegemony doctrine said was inevitable. "Sir," he whispered to Admiral Korth, "we should accept their terms." "Never, sir. If we don't agree to this, they'll force us to agree to something worse." Admiral Korth glared at him. "Explain!" Vexthul pulled up his classified intelligence reports. "Sir, the humans have been sharing more than just military technology. They've been sharing industrial techniques, medical knowledge, agricultural methods, and educational systems. Every world they liberate becomes more productive and more advanced. So they're building an alliance that's economically and technologically superior to the hegemony. If this continues, they won't need to fight us. They'll simply make us irrelevant." Harrison nodded approvingly. "Very perceptive, Commander Vexthul." "You've been planning this from the beginning," Admiral Korth accused. "Not from the beginning," Harrison replied. "We didn't plan to be invaded, but once you showed us what was possible, we realized we had an opportunity to change the galaxy for the better. By destroying the hegemony, by freeing the galaxy. The hegemony can still exist, Admiral, but it will exist as one civilization among many, not as the master of all." Vexthul studied the terms of the agreement again. They were harsh, but fair. The hegemony would survive, but it would never again dominate the galaxy. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I recommend we accept." "You're willing to throw away 1,000 years of civilization?" "Sir, that civilization was built on the suffering of others. Maybe it's time for something new." Admiral Korth was silent for a long moment. Finally, he looked up at Harrison. "If we accept these terms, what guarantee do we have that you won't attack us later?" "You have our word. The word of humans means nothing." Harrison's expression hardened. "Admiral, humans keep their promises? We've proven that by keeping every commitment we've made to our allies. But if you prefer, we can continue this war until there's nothing left of the hegemony but radioactive debris." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that the humans had the military capability to make good on that threat. "Very well," Admiral Korth said finally. "The hegemony accepts your terms." As Vexthul watched the delegates sign the agreement that would reshape the galaxy, he realized that the humans had accomplished something unprecedented. They hadn't just won a war, they had changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had all started because one species refused to surrender when surrender was the logical choice. The humans had taught the galaxy that sometimes the impossible was just another word for inevitable.